Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, too bad we couldn't meet on Monday, but that's
I heard this. But actually, I was in the plane, so coming back from Taipei. So
it's a long trip too, for you,
it was
right?
13 hours
Yeah,
from until Amsterdam, and then Lyon. So yes, a
yeah.
very long trip.
All right. And and I think we both agree that we want to talk about, we kind of want to focus on NVIDIA and MediaTek. Is that right?
Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense because
Yeah.
actually Nvidia made a big announcements and MediaTek uh, showed many things at their booth at Computex. They showed many things with Nvidia collaboration. So I think in terms of big news, it was mostly around Nvidia and MediaTek. Also, I saw many like server OEMs showing some Nvidia stuff, Nvidia GPUs everywhere. So Nvidia was absolutely everywhere on every booth with the signature
Wow.
of Jensen Huang at each partner. So it was a bit crazy.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of real news, real interesting news, it was mostly on Nvidia and MediaTek.
All
For
right.
Computex.
Very good. That makes sense. I think what just Hugo said was interesting. So I'm here with Hugo, but the thing that I want to know, what was the biggest highlight in your mind at the Computex recently?
So yes, that's a good question. And actually, I went to the Nvidia keynotes, and I think the big news was about the NVLink fusion. It's very big news because Nvidia is now opening its closed ecosystem. So it's a big news because now you can add some non-Nvidia hardware into the ecosystem of Nvidia. Because previously, if you want to have the best performances, you need to have all Nvidia, like from the CPU, GPUs, and all the networking architecture. And currently, the networking architecture is very key because when you want to make a big generative AI model, you need to have what we call scale up and scale out networks. That means that it's how to say scale up is when you want to group like having like a big virtual GPUs. And when you have this kind of big virtual GPU, you can have a very efficient network to run the biggest AI model in the world. And
Yeah.
this is very key for today's generative AI, and which is also the key difference between NVIDIA, Google TPU, AWS Trainium or Inferentia, and Intel or AMD. The scale-up architecture is key. And this scale-up is because of NVLink and NVSwitch of NVIDIA. And so this is this parameter that NVIDIA is opening right now to I want to say competitor, but I would like to say partners now to make some customized architecture within NVIDIA global ecosystem, which include, of course, hardware, but also software.
Okay, let me stop you right there because there's a lot of information you just gave me. You know, I I think I'm agreeing with you that this does look like NVIDIA is opening up and paving the road for scale up and scale out, right? But at the same time, I have to think who is actually going to adapt this NVLink fusion, who will benefit from it aside from being an NVIDIA? NVIDIA obviously benefit from this all, right? But if I'm not necessarily, if I want to be on my own and not necessarily, be part of NVIDIA's ecosystem, it's sort of like I feel like I'm coerced into the NVIDIA's ecosystem.
Yeah, I think so. So firstly, so NVIDIA announced that they are working with Qualcomm and Fujitsu. They will make their own CPU with NVLink. And so that means that there are people interested in. And so it's also a way from Fujitsu and Qualcomm to expand into server. For Fujitsu, it was already the case But for Qualcomm, it's very recent, and actually, Qualcomm, they also announced that they will in the future expand to data center. So it was also a big news, but without any details, so difficult to speculate about it. But
Yeah.
it's an important fact, and also we have all the what we call the co-designer that include Alchip, MediaTek, Marvell, and also the Synopsys, Astera Labs that were cited. And for them, they are actually working with companies that want to develop their own chip that can be an AI ASICs, a CPU, or even networking chip. And for them, it's a possibility to include NVIDIA IP into their custom chip, to say to their customer, if you want to have a solution which will be fully implemented in your current NVIDIA ecosystem, we have the IP, we have the partner to do it. So I think it's also on this topic.
Yeah, so it is solidifying NVIDIA's foundation in this space. Okay.
Yeah.
I have one additional question though. You mentioned all these chip companies that including some ASIC companies and designing their own CPUs. What about those hyperscalers, Google, Meta, Amazon of the world, who actually don't necessarily want to use NVIDIA's chip, but building their own? Where do they stand in this?
Yes, that's a very interesting question, and actually, it's not easy to answer to this one. What I think honestly is that you have generative AI with the AI model with billion of parameters, but you have also many other things. You have like recommendation model, for example, for ads, for example, for Meta. Actually, Meta, they have their own what we can call AI ASIC, but it's not for generative AI for now. It's more for recommendation or for advertisement. And actually, this could be if you want to have a very efficient server working with specific ASIC for specific use case like recommendation.
Right.
NVIDIA don't have this product. Doesn't have this product.
Yeah.
And so if Meta wants to implement this in their NVIDIA ecosystem, they can do this by implementing the chiplet or the IP of the NVLink directly on their own custom ASIC. So I think it's not white and black. There are some gray and some other applications.
Okay, so not everything needs to be vertical. I mean, this actually opens up the ecosystem to the sort of like horizontally if they choose to come in. All right, that's a very good take. So let's move on to MediaTek. I think this is NVIDIA, MediaTek were the star at Computex. No?
Yeah. Actually, it was in terms of news. It was already something that was already known, like the DGX Spark was already known, the automotive CX1 and so on was already known, but we saw it with our own eyes, so it was a big news. And also in terms of roadmaps, we now exactly know when it will be available. For example, on automotive, it will be. I heard it will be next year in automotive car, but OEMs already have the chip, so it is very fast, going very fast. And what was very interesting, it was like, in my understanding, when NVIDIA and MediaTek collaborated for this new chip, it's at this moment they understood that okay, there is maybe something to do with the NVLink fusion, and it's because of this that they developed the IP for all the companies. And also, what is very interesting with in automotive, it's the first chiplet, I think, that will be in automotive, in real automotive. Currently, we heard something, speculations, but now it's real, it's concrete. And what is also a bit surprising for me is that, when you are looking at ADAS and infotainment, because in car you have typically ADAS and infotainment that are very power computing intensive. ADAS is very much more power intensive than infotainment, because
Right.
when you have ADAS, you have many sensors, you have like usually NVIDIA Orin stacks. So two NVIDIA Orin actually, for example, or even sometimes more than that. If you want to make a chiplet that makes sense to maybe merge those two or four ADAS processors into one chiplet. And actually, they started by infotainment, which is not the same actually. Infotainment, it's usually Qualcomm. You have also other partner, but when you are looking at the very high-end car, for example, in China, usually the stack, it's the same for everyone. It's NVIDIA for ADAS, Qualcomm for infotainment.
Right.
And so with MediaTek and NVIDIA going into the infotainment, we will maybe see some configuration with more and more NVIDIA inside infotainment. And it's a very new way for NVIDIA, because there were already a bit in infotainment, but it wasn't a real success actually, because Qualcomm was leading, because Qualcomm was very, very good at the smartphone ecosystem, and because of all this knowledge, they were able to provide a very efficient and very good smartphone-like experience inside cockpits. And so with MediaTek also have this experience in smartphone, and NVIDIA, they have the NPU and GPU stack to be able to run generative AI models. So now we will have more and more generative AI model inside the car to have like smart cockpit assistant. It's already a bit the case, but very early, and sometimes it's doing in the cloud. So now we will be able to have a really generative AI smart assistant inside the car, and it's pretty new.
So MediaTek, historically speaking, MediaTek is not exactly known as a automotive SoC powerhouse, right? But this association with the NVIDIA, but also their early entry into the chiplets, those are the factors that are opening the market, opening the door for them to get into the automotive. Is that your take?
Actually, yes. In terms, when we are looking at MediaTek, typically they are known for in automotive mostly for telematics.
Telematics.
So, telematics, and they tried some years ago to go into the cockpit infotainment, but it was very small volume. And yes, I think that they will be able with this partnership to expand in infotainment to compete with Qualcomm. And I think honestly, it could be very, very difficult for Qualcomm to compete with a partnership with NVIDIA and MediaTek. I think it could be very a big threat for them.
Wow. So landscape is changing. It's very good. Thanks for your time. I learned a lot as usual, and that was fun. Thanks.
Thank you, Junko. Very nice to talk with you.